Cells are the basis of life, the basic structural unit of living things. Molecules such as water and amino acids are not alive, but cells are. All life is comprised of cells of one type or another. One of the hallmarks of living systems is the ability to maintain homeostasis, or a relatively constant internal state. The cell is the first level of complexity able to maintain homeostasis, and it is the unique structure of the cell that enables this critical function. Modern cell theorists assert that all functions essential to life occur within the cell, and that during cell division, the cell contains and transmits to the next generation the information necessary to conduct and regulate cell functioning. So this three that you see on the slide is what comprises the cell theory. Let's begin our study of the cell by investigating the basic anatomy of an animal cell. Each cell consists of three components shown in the image on the slide. A cell membrane which surrounds and protects the cell, and let me reiterate that in the animal cell, which includes human cell, we have a cell membrane, but in plant cell, they have cell wall. So never did it happen that an animal cell have a cell wall. What we have is the cell membrane. Alright, let's proceed. Next is the cytoplasm, which is the watery interior of the cell, which contains ions, proteins, and organelles. Lastly, the organelles, which carry out all activities necessary for the cell to live, grow, and reproduce. Within the body, cells represent a level of organization between organelles and tissues. Organelles, in turn, are comprised of specialized macromolecules, and tissues are collection naman of specialized cells. Brain, kidney, liver, muscle, and lung tissues differ from each other because of the structure and function of their constituent cells. Thus, the cells comprising each tissue type vary in shape, size, and interior structure to permit their specific physiological function within the tissue. One important concept to keep in mind as you study anatomy and physiology is that structure determines the function. When you look at the shape of a cell, it gives you a clue kung ano ang iyang function. Try to guess which of these three are the arrows pointing to. Now observe the cells in the following slides and think about how the shape is necessary for its role. See if you can match the cell with its function. And another one. Last. So each cell process is carried out in a specific location in the cell, often located in or around an organelle. Organelles carry out specialized tasks within the cell, localizing functions such as replication, energy production, protein synthesis, and processing of food and waste. Think of a city and the various jobs within a city. A cell is similar with each organelle serving a specific purpose. There are organelles whose job is to provide shape and structure to the cell, much like the city streets and bridges. These protein-rich organelles include intermediate filaments, microtubules, and microfilaments. Some of these actually move other organelles around the cell or change the shape of the cells. So when it comes to animal cell or the human cell, there is what we call a cell membrane or the plasma membrane, no? With opposed to a plant cell which has a cell wall. So I want you to remember that the animal cell, which includes the human cells, do not have a cell wall. When a muscle cell contracts or shortens, it does so by the microfilaments made up of proteins actin and myosin. One special organelle composed of microtubules is located in an area near the nucleus and the centrosome. The centrosome contains a pair called of microtubule bundles known as centrioles. Centrioles are important because they move chromosomes to opposite ends of the cell during cell replication, termed mitosis. And neurons naman do not have centrioles and therefore they cannot replicate. Other organelles help synthesize the proteins needed by the cell, and these protein factories are called ribosomes. They can be scattered within the cell or attached to a membrane channel system called the endoplasmic reticulum or ER. No? So when the ER has ribosomes attached to it, it is termed the rough ER because the ribosomes give it a rough or grainy appearance. When the ER lacks ribosomes naman, it is termed the smooth ER and functions for lipid synthesis and storage of toxins. When a protein is manufactured, it must be folded into a specific shape to work. Often, additional side contains of carbohydrates must be attached, or what we call the side chains. The proteins is processed in the rough ER because it has ribosomes. And once it is formed, it enters na the Golgi apparatus, which is the distributing plant for the cell. It completes any protein processing and then ginapackage siya into vesicles para matransport na siya to its specific destination. Some proteins are needed in the cell membrane, and the vesicles make sure that they reach the membrane. The Golgi apparatus also makes a special type of vesicle termed lysosome. The lysosome is the garbage man of the cells. Why? Because it takes in cell debris and waste, and then the lysosome destroys it. The lysosome contains very powerful hydrolytic enzymes to accomplish ang ginatawag nga pag-destroy or pagkaon sa mga waste materials. It is very important that the enzymes remain in the lysosome or they would destroy the cell. So dapat gid the enzymes which catalyzes for ang pag-destroy, dapat na-contain lang siya within the lysosome only. Kaya once nga makagwa siya, so the cell, the enzymes in the lysosome will eat the whole cell. And then malapta siya to another cell. Next, the power plant of the cell, the mitochondria. This organelle generates the ATP or energy of the cell. Mitochondria even have their own DNA termed mitochondrial DNA or the mDNA, and it can also replicate. And a little trivia, the mDNA or the mitochondrial DNA, halin na siya sa aton nga mga mothers, That specific DNA, the mDNA, only comes from the mother nga gin-pass down niya sa iyang offspring. Finally, there is the controller of the cell. This is the nucleus. And not all cells have a nucleus, and they are termed anucleate. Wala nucleus, anucleate. If you look at the image of the red blood cell, you will see a white dot in the center of the cell. That is where the nucleus used to be. No? The nucleus is ejected when they mature. Some cells have more than one nucleus and are termed multinucleate. Skeletal muscles cells, they are very large cells and are multinucleate. The nucleus contains the DNA of the cell and the nucleolus. The nucleus is an organelle that makes ribosomes, and the DNA is your genetic code. It contains the genes that contains the instruction for making every protein in your body. The nucleus is surrounded by its own membrane with tiny holes termed nuclear pores. The membrane is called the nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope. And basically, those are the major organelles of the cell that kinanglan yung mga mabalaan. No, very vital information for non-med students. So, with regards to your activity or your quiz, it is actually very simple, no? How do you answer a critical thinking question? Again, as I've said sa some of your classmates who've asked, "Ma'am, ba nga asal answer ko?" or whatever. I told them, hindi ni siya palaba-laba, sabat. Magsinig ka nga critical thinking questions, you actually have to pinpoint what the question is asking and give the simplest answer that you can give. So, for example, our question was, paano nga pati ang organ nagakaguba kung ang target man lang sa mutation is on the cellular or molecular level? So this question was actually derived from or translated from an English nga question, no straight English. So gin-pa-simplify talaga ang question so that maintindihan nyo, because on the first attempt in answering this, very little lang ang nakagets kung ano ang pamangkot. But, if you really look into it, ang ginapamangkot is, how is it kuno nga pati ang organ, di ba, maguba siya. But most the answers was, or were, nga, amo na iya ang ilang ginasabat, no? Nga, kuno kakaguba ang organ, or nga, may cancer nga tawag, or nga may tumor, or what is tumor, amo pa ginayang iban nga sabat. But if you really look at the question, hambal diri paano kano nga the organ is also destroyed? How is it that the organ is also destroyed if no ang ginaguba man lang sang mutation or ang nag-cause man lang sang tumor is a mutation on the cellular level? So let's answer this. If you really look into it, ginaistoryahan ta diri or mabalik kita sa previous tang na-learn, which is the levels of organization. Specifically, talking only about the organ. Kaya nga ako nung kakaguba pati ang organ, 'di ba? So first, how can we say that an organ is guba or destroyed or damaged, no? So it's very simple. If an organ is no longer its original shape or original structure, it cannot function properly, because as we've said again, the structure determines the function. If there is an anomaly in the structure, whether it is in the molecular or cellular level, kag naapektuhan ang pagproseso sang organ, therefore that organ is guba. So your answer must only be based on the level of organization itself. Why is it nga pati ang organ gakaguba kung ang target lang man sa mutation that causes tumor is the molecular or the cellular level? It is because kung tulukunta ang level of organization of the human body from the subatomic particles going to the organism itself, maguba syempre ang, o dire lang kita asta sa organ, maguba syempre ang organ kung guba ang tissue. No? So, may ara, yun nga naka-get sa answer. Hambal nila, hindi kaguba ang organ because the organ is made up of tissue. And tissue is made up of cells. So, therefore, if the mutation occurs in the cell, or kung further down pag ito sa molecular level, nga may nagsala code sa molecular level, therefore, ang guba nga cell, magapaguba sang function sang tissue, and ang guba nga tissue, makapaguba sang function sang organ. That's it. As simple as that. If you've given an answer that is related to or similar to what we've discussed, or even if naghatag ka mo sang little input about broken tissue equals broken organ, excellent answer na siya dayon. So that's why some of you got very high score, some of you doesn't have very high score, but don't worry because sa supplemental or sa supplementary quiz, I've already given points na lang for effort. Kay kaduwan ninyo try to answer the question. But yes, that is how we'll answer ang critical thinking questions natin further down pa in finishing this course. And to give you an advantage in answering or scoring an acceptable score, having an acceptable score in quiz number 2, all the questions and answers will be based on what you've written sa activity number 2, which is the structure and function of cell organelles. So, similar or related terms will be from there. And very simple lang. So, as long as you provide or you choose answers from the choices given, which you've already known na because you've already answered it in your activity. And yes, once nga may activity ka or activity 2 ka, for sure makascore ka din sa quiz number 2. Yes, again, open notes. Because kamo mismo nag-umbra sa activity nyo, you know what's inside of that activity. So, it's very easy to have high score. So, that's it. That's all for cell, organelles, structure, and function.